Springfield, it's a hell of a town. The schoolyard's up and the shopping mall's down. The stray dogs go to the animal pound. Springfield, Springfield. Springfield, Springfield.
New York.
Hey, welcome to Half the Battle. Let's go to Springfield. No, I mean the Cobra version.
We're looking at comic issue 10, A Nice Little Town Like Ours.
This one's gonna be weird, folks. We're talking bad acid trips and killer children.
The cover is appropriate and symbolic. We see Scarlet and Snake Eyes entering Springfield, a nice little town, while Cobra troops are hiding behind a fake wall. Since we don't see an actual fake wall like that in the comic, this cover is meant to convey how the town is really just a facade, and it does a pretty good job of this. My only problem with the cover is the goofy expression on Scarlet's face. It really has no place there, considering the way they get to Springfield. The issue itself opens on the rooftop of a building in New York City. The Joes have found out it's a Cobra stronghold, and they are there to neutralize it. Part of the strategy is Scarlet, Zap, and Snake Eyes entering from the roof. They're spotted by a Cobra goon, though. Baroness, there are... The salutation! Never forget the salutation!
Oh, come on, now you're just doing it on purpose.
Enough with the Nazi saluting already! Anyway, the Baroness activates the defenses, causing the Joes to drop in on Cobra. That's not my terrible pun, by the way. The comic was nice enough to make it for me. With the trio trapped in a metal room, the rest of the Joes decide to act now and storm the building. However, before they can get to their friends, something incredibly improbable happens.
Get ready for this one, folks.
You see, the top of the building isn't a building at all. It's in fact an aircraft. Cobra has managed to disguise an aircraft at the top of a building in New York City.
I have just 3 questions. How, and how?
By the way, calling this thing an aircraft, yeah, that's being a little too generous. It's a rectangle box with jet engines. How the hell this thing stays in the air, I have no freaking idea. It has all the aerodynamics of a Bohr cube. The Baroness pumps the room containing our heroes full of gas, and so the rest of the trip is skipped over, since, well, nothing interesting happens during it. This is also convenient, since that way we don't get to see where they're actually traveling to. Much later, in a prison cell, this stops being a G.I. Joe comic and becomes what I think the inside of Ozzy Osbourne's mind must be like, as we see Scarlet being attacked by bats, and then gargoyles on an endless featureless plane. Yeah, she be trippin' balls, yo. The guards helpfully spout exposition, explaining that they're keeping the prisoners on hallucinogens now, so they won't make trouble. This is also where we're introduced to Billy.
Hello. I'd like to play a game with you.
Wrong Billy. Way wrong Billy. And at any rate, we don't learn his name in this issue, actually. For the moment, he's just a kid who's a Cobra prisoner for some reason. We switch to a laboratory where we're introduced to Dr. Venom. He was Cobra's resident mad scientist before Dr. Mindbender was invented. Hey, at least this guy wears shirts.
You know, with a name like Dr. Venom, he had to join Cobra, really. I mean, I can't really see this guy as a pediatrician.
This is also where we get our first look at Cobra's infamous brainwave scanner. This iteration of the machine has the power to learn how to read images from somebody's mind, as we find out in a long exposition dump. Cobra Commander and Dr. Venom hope to learn the location of G.I. Joe headquarters by plucking it straight from Snake Eyes' mind.
But let's get back to Scarlet in Wonderland.
Zap is lying on his back and can't get up. Because he's a turtle. Because of course he is. While Scarlet is buried up to her nose in the ground. Also, there's a clown there to haunt your nightmares for a while. They are given bread and water, but the kid warns them not to drink it, since that's how they get drugged. He says to heat up the water to neutralize the drug. Assuming they're getting acquainted with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, yeah, this will in fact work, as LSD will degrade even at room temperature, and it'll degrade even faster the hotter it gets.
That search makes another fun addition to my browser history, by the way. Ay.
The kid informs them they're in Springfield, which used to be a nice little town. Switching back from mind altering to mind reading, we find Snake Eyes is trying to outfox the brainwave scanner by concentrating on trivial stuff from his adolescence, like his school ball. When this no longer works, he has to switch to the most painful memories he can think of, and here we learn how he got disfigured. It was in fact a helicopter crash and burning fuel that turned him into Freddy Krueger's less creepy brother. We also learn that he was on the last chopper to leave Saigon at the end of the Vietnam War.
Like I mentioned in my Baroness review, it's best to ignore the timeline difficulties that arise today from stuff like this.
The final new thing we learn about Snake Eyes this issue is that his entire family was killed in a car crash.
You know, for being one of Larry Hama's favorite characters, he sure likes to torture the hell out of him.
The Joes and the kid, meanwhile, have a plan to escape by pretending to still be on acid and claiming there's an anti-Cobra meeting later. The guards rush in and promptly get dispatched. Stealing their uniforms, they make a break for it. Hey, what's going on? Oh, there you are. Don't forget to change clothes.
I'm glad to see you're keeping up with protocol by not talking to me or acknowledging me in any way.
Now back to playing with my knob. While they're making their way to Snake Eyes, Billy explains what the deal is with Springfield. It all started when people selling cleaning products came into town, setting up pyramid schemes to get as many townsfolk as possible involved. Then sales meetings turned into leadership indoctrinations, and things kinda snowballed from there, until it was considered un-American not to be involved. It even got to the point where people who resisted simply disappeared, and kids even turned in their own parents.
Man, this town must have been L. Ron Hubbard's wet dream.
So yeah, now we've got Nazi symbolism mixed in with classic cult forming. Yikes! Anyway, they arrive at the town's arcade, which has the laboratory underneath it. Once they enter though, they are soon made, since nobody has seen these Joes before, and they all know Billy is a traitor. Also, all the kids are Cobra cultists. Some of them are even junior officers. So, let's add the Hitler Youth into the mix.
Charming.
Meanwhile, in the basement, Dr. Venom is getting close to cracking Snake Eyes. But the procedure has taken its toll, and his vitals are dropping fast. Before the doctor can do anything, the intruder alarm sounds, distracting him. So, he doesn't see what's going through Snake Eyes' mind at that moment. Namely, the day he was taught the secret ninja technique to slow down his breathing and heart rate to the point where he'd appear dead.
Convenient that the bad guys didn't see that, huh?
Once Venom assesses the situation, he feels the kids have got this one, so he heads back. And I can actually see why he'd think that, considering they have a freaking laser cannon. Once back in the basement though, it seems that Snake Eyes has expired, much to the chagrin of the good doctor. The moment they remove his restraints, however, it becomes clear reports of his death were greatly exaggerated. Snake Eyes takes out the doctor and the guards and then heads upstairs to join the fun, while being nice enough to put his mask back on. Once upstairs, he shoots out the fuse box so the brick freaking laser cannon's power is cut off. And they get the hell out of there. The kid informs them Cobra will set up roadblocks, so their best bet for escape is the airfield. They make it there without any trouble and subdue the guards. They offer to take the kid with them, but he declines. He says it's because he's got family in town and they're in the resistance. But I bet it's because he took one look at a giant laptop masquerading as a plane and figured he'd be safer with half the town trying to kill him. They capture a Cobra pilot who they force to fly them out of there. The pilot knows they have no idea where they're going though, and he isn't talking. Before they can start interrogating him proper, he pulls a gun out of his helmet?
Ouch, that must have been super uncomfortable.
He shoots at Snake Eyes, but since this guy graduated from the Cobra Weapons Proficiency Academy, he misses at point-blank range. Snake Eyes alerts his fellow Joes that the pilot is armed using the only method of communication he knows, i.e. firing his gun. Unfortunately, this kills the pilot, as well as the compass and navigation gear. To add to the convenience, well, convenience for the plot anyway, inconvenience for the Joes, they're flying in the middle of a storm, so they have no idea where they're going. Hours later, they're out of the storm and spot a city near the sea. So they ditch the so-called plane and bail out. Then Scarlet makes a landing on the Incredible Hulk?
Excuse me. Somebody, probably the ghost, has obviously spiked my water with something. I think I'd better go lay down for a while to, sleep this off. Okay, I feel better now. Let's see. Nope, still seeing the Incredible Hulk there. Well, that's it, folks. After a whole year of doing this, I finally cracked. I think it's time to call the men with the white coats and get myself locked up. It's the only logical thing to do. Unless... Well, I suppose I could try looking at the next panel to see if anything happens. That's just crazy enough that it might just work.
Huh. The Hulk turns out to be a guy in a Hulk costume promoting Marvel Comics. Oh, that explains it. I'm not crazy after all. This makes total sense. Except it doesn't.
I mean, I'm reading a Marvel comic which has characters meeting employees from Marvel.
The comic ends with the Marvel guy giving the trio their bus fare home, and we end on a laugh, with the bus driver seeing Snake Eyes, saying he doesn't want any weirdos on the bus.
Hey, dude, if a heavily armed guy comes up to you, who is dressed in what can only be described as terrorist clothes, that's not the proper response. This is the proper response.
Abandon your post! Flee for your life!
So, that was issue 10. My thoughts?
Well, we learn a lot this issue. We get our first look at Snake Eyes' tragic past, something I'm sure a lot of people were clamoring for back in the day.
And believe me, his past will only get more tragic, not to mention convoluted, as time goes on.
We also see how dangerous Cobra can really be. They've managed to take over an entire town without firing a shot. And they're knee-deep in the brainwashing business. Something else that will get far more convoluted over time, believe me. The name Springfield wasn't chosen by accident, of course. The name was picked for the same reason Matt Groening picked it to be the town in The Simpsons. Namely, there are a hell of a lot of Springfields in the United States. I'm pretty sure Groening thought this up on his own, but it's a nice idea that maybe he got the idea from G.I. Joe. The story itself is excellent, and the discovery of Springfield, well, its existence, not its location, anyway, will have far-reaching repercussions down the line. My only problems with the issue are minor. I dislike the aerodynamically suicidal aircraft, and the fact that the Joes had no idea where they were going while traveling in the thing. It just felt a little too plot convenient, but I can understand why it had to be that way. Overall, this issue has to be read. It's a good story, new characters are introduced, and we learn a lot more about Cobra and Snake Eyes. So go out there and find it.
That's all for this week, folks. See you next time.
Springfield, Springfield, it's a hell of a town. The schoolyard's up and the shopping mall's down. The stray dogs go to the animal pound. Springfield, Springfield.
Springfield, Springfield.
New York is that way, man.
Thanks, kid.
And your bollocks did up good, you did.
I have just 3 questions. Why? And that's not the line. Nope. It's supposed to be how. I'm good at this.